Today we'll be working in my workbook called The Jews Return from Exile, Part 2, and it's called The Arrival of Ezra. This is the second book in the book of Ezra, and Ezra actually spans a huge amount of time. The first book, chapters 1 through 6, with the exception of some parts of chapter 4, are the first period when the Jews returned to Jerusalem under Zerubbabel. Ezra doesn't exist during that book, part of the book, excuse me. And then there's a gap. In fact, we'll go to the timeline to show you. Ezra 1 through 6. The temple is completed during that time. Zerubbabel brings 50,000 Jews back to Jerusalem. The altar is rebuilt, the temple foundations are laid, and the temple is completed. And notice that the prophets Haggai and Zechariah are there during that time. They start to build the wall, and they got stopped by the Samaritans. That's actually in this book that I'm writing now. So speaking now, teaching now, Ezra 1 and 6, between that and 7 through 10, there's quite a span. And in that span is the book of Esther. Esther is in Persia, in Susa, and it's right in between these two books. Now, in Ezra 7 through 10, which is where we are now in the book of Ezra, Ezra is leading a second group to Jerusalem. And then, of course, Nehemiah will handle the actual walls being rebuilt and stuff like that. So that's where we are, as Ezra is led the second group to Jerusalem. And again, this is the route they're going to take, following up the river and then coming down to Jerusalem. Looking at the table of contents, we've done the first two chapters already. First, the Samaritans were able to stop the rebuilding of the walls. And the walls don't get restarted until Nehemiah comes, which I'll be working on right after I finish Ezra here, as far as inputting it into YouTube. Now, in chapter 2, which, again, Ezra's book is not an easy book to study or read, and hopefully my workbook has made it easier, because it's like written by an accountant or a bookkeeper, not a writer. We go through Ezra, which is very difficult. Then Esther is just the glorious book, but obviously it's written by a different author. And then Nehemiah is better, but in fact, the first book of Nehemiah is pretty good. But anyway, back to Ezra. So the Samaritans are able to stop rebuilding the walls by writing a letter to King Artaxerxes, and he doesn't have they point him to certain points in history, in his recordings, the chronology of the kings, and he's able to see, yes, Jerusalem was a rebellious city, so he stops the rebuilding of the walls. So they're able to stop that. Then in chapter 2, what Ezra does is give a summary of his trip into Jerusalem. It's just a summary. He basically says, that he's gotten approval, he's gotten a letter, and he's gotten and the type of people that's going to go with him, and that he's going to go to Jerusalem. So it's all a summary. But now chapter 3, he's going to go into detail, and that's where we are today, into detail of his trip to Jerusalem. So let's go ahead and go there. Chapter 3, Ezra travels to Jerusalem in detail, Ezra 8, 1 through 36. Here is a list of family leaders and genealogies of those who came with me from Babylon during the reign of Artaxerxes, King Artaxerxes. I have to get my answers out because I can see right now I may be asking questions that don't require immediate memory. Okay, so 2 from the family of Phinehas, Gershom. From the family of Ithamar, Daniel. From the family of David, Hattush, and a descendant of second Shechaniah. Now, this Daniel, by the way, from Ithamar is probably not the Daniel that we know of, because Daniel at this time probably is already dead because he died during the first part of the when Zerubbabel was about to come in. So he's definitely not alive at this point. So it's a different Daniel. Um, from the family of David, Hattush, a descendant of Zechariah, and three. From the family of Parosh, Zechariah and 150 other men were registered. From the family of Pahath Moab, Elonai, son of Zeraha, and 200 other men. Now Ezra lists the people who came with him on his trip to Jerusalem. Notice Ezra makes a point of telling the genealogy of each man or group, which designated what function that they would have in the temple in Jerusalem. Let's see if we can understand who these people are. Gershom is of the family of Phinehas. This means that Gershom is from the tribe of Levi and a priest, since Phinehas is a grandson of Aaron, the first high priest. And see Numbers 25:11. Daniel is the family of Ithamar. This means that Daniel is also from the tribe of Levi and a priest, since Ithamar was the son of Aaron, the first high priest. And you see that in Numbers 3:2. Hattush was of the family of David through Shechaniah. Since David is the line of kings from the tribe of Judah, Hattush's line down from David is shown in detail in 1 Chronicles 3:1-22 from David's son Solomon. Zechariah of the family of Parosh and Ehonai of the family of Pahath Moab. We know nothing of these families other than over 2,000 of each of these family lines came with the first group traveling to Jerusalem for Babylon in Ezra 2:3. How many men are in the group so far? So we've got one Ezra, Daniel, Zechariah, Gershom, Hattush, and Ehonai, and then 150 men from the Parosh family and 200 men from the Pahath Moab family, and the amount of men so far is 356. Nice to have the answers right beside me. If you ever were to get my books, which is fine, just tell me via email. Each book is $10. The answers are in the back of the book. Ezra 8:5, from the family of Zatu, Shechaniah, son of Jahaziel, and 300 other men. From the family of Adin, Ebed, son of Jonathan, and 500 other men. From the family of Elam, Shaniah, son of Athalah, and 70 other men. From the family of Shephatiah, Zabadiah, son of Michael, and 880 other men. From the family of Joab, Obadiah, son of Jehiel, and 218 other men. From the family of Bani, Shelomoth, son of Josephiah, and 160 other men. From the family of Bebai, Zechariah, son of Bebai, and 28 other men. From the family of Azgad, Jonahan, son of Hakatan, and 110 other men. Whew, what a name. So now I will say right now, I don't know if I'm saying the names right, unless I know them well. But normally these names are written so that you can phonetically say them, but I wouldn't know which syllable to emphasize. So, like in the name of Michael, you emphasize the first one, but so some of these may be emphasized in a different way than I did. Anyway, that's the only apology I'm going to make. Although we do not know anything specifically about these family lines, all their families also sent people with the first group that came to Jerusalem from Babylon in Ezra 2 was Zerubbabel. How many men are in the group so far? So from the previous page, we have 356, right? From the family of Zatu, remember 301 men. From the family of Adin, 51 men. From the family of Elam, 71 men. From the family of Shephatiah, 81 men. From the family of Joab, 219 men. From the family of Bani, 161 men. From the family of Bebai, 29 men. And from the family of Ashgad, 111 men. Remember, because you're adding the one person that they're identifying. And yeah, okay. So the total of that would be 1,380 men. Isn't it nice to have the answers already? All right. And the reason why do we do this? Why do we add when you think normally they're going to add it on their own? It's because you're kind of checking their math. If their math is different, then you have to figure out why. Ezra 8:13 of the last sons of Adan-Chem, whose names are these: Elaphalet, Jeiel, and Shemaha, and with them 60 males, and often also of the sons of Bigvai, Uthai, and Zabad, with them 70 males. Although we don't know anything specifically about these family lines, all their families also sent people with the first group that came to Jerusalem from Babylon in Ezra 2. So, how many men so far? From the previous page, we have 1,380. We have Eliphat, Jeiel, and Shemala, which are three. The males that came with Adonkim, 60. Uthai and Zabad, which are two. Males that came with the sons of Bigvai, 70. So total men that have traveled with Ezra, 1,515. So with women and children, doubling the figure would be 3,030. 3,030, yeah. All these people traveled 4 months from Babylon to Jerusalem. Now I gathered them by the river that flows to Ahava, and we camped there 3 days. And I looked among the people and the priest, and found none of the sons of Levi there. The river that flows to Ahava is probably near the town of Ahava and is within the Babylonian basin. It was at the start of their journey and was probably a place where all these people, together with their families and provisions, could gather in preparation for the trip. Since priests could only come from the tribe of Levi, why does Ezra make a difference between the priests and the sons of Levi? In short, all priests are Levites, but not all Levites are priests. All Levites who are directly descended from Aaron, the first high priest, are priests. But all Levites that did not descend from Aaron are considered sons of Levi and work in the temple. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So Exodus 30:30, and you shall anoint Aaron and his sons and consecrate them that they may minister to me as priests. So that's where Aaron and his direct line are priests. Numbers 3:6-8, call forward the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest to serve as his assistants. They will serve Aaron and the whole community, performing their sacred duties in and around the tabernacle. And they will also maintain all the furnishings of the sacred tent, serving in the tabernacle on the behalf of all the Israelites. So remember, Aaron had two other siblings, Moses and Miriam. And I don't even know if Miriam's family would count in this, but Moses' family, anybody who came from Moses, and would then be Levites, but not priests, right? And then if you back it up one, their father had two other brothers, so any of their families are Levites, but not from Aaron. Okay, so that helps to understand what are Levites versus what are priests. What is the difference between a priest and a son of Levi? I just told you that. Aaron, any direct line from Aaron could be a priest. Any Levite that isn't a direct line from Aaron would be just a Levite and a worker in the temple. Of all the people gathered to travel with Ezra, who did he find missing? Sons of Levi. So basically Levites. And then I sent for Eleazar, Ariel, Shemala, Elnathan, Jerub, Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshullam, leaders, also for Johirib and Elnation, Elnathan, men of understanding. And I gave them a command for Ido, the chief man at the place of Casaphia, and I told them what they should say to Ido and his brethren, the Nethinim, at the place of Casaphia, that they should bring us servants for the house of our God. Okay, so basically, you have leaders that he's going to go send to Casaphia, and the chief man at Casaphia is Ido, and they're looking for the Nethinim, that which are temple servants, and apparently there's a bunch of them in Casaphia. Who are these men in verse 16? We do know that they are Levites that work in the temple, but Ezra also identifies them as leaders, and of the last two, men of understanding, which means they're teachers. Where is Casaphia? As this is the only reference to it in the Bible, the location of this town is unknown, other than it was probably in the Babylon basin and walking proximity to where Ezra's group is camped. Since it is where Ido and a large group of Nethinim are, there may also be a Jewish synagogue there. Even though it's Jewish, they were temple servants, which means that they weren't necessarily Jewish, but there was something that was going on there because they were all congregated there. Why had there not been any sons of Levi with the original group gathered to go with Ezra? That's unknown. Scholars generally believe that the Levites may have been satisfied with their lives in Babylon and did not feel the need to go back to their homeland and work in the newly erected temple there. Whatever the reason, Ezra doesn't criticize them for not initially wanting to return to Jerusalem. Who is the chief man in Casaphia? Iddo. What did Ezra want from Iddo? Bring us temple servants for the house of our God. What is unique about Joharib and Elnathan? Excuse me. They're men of understanding. Since there are so many Nethinim temple workers at Casaphia, what is probably there? Probably some kind of temple or some kind of situation like that. Something that keeps them gathered there. Could be they're all of one, because temple servants can be not Jew. Temple servants were originally slaves captured from other people. So maybe it's just a congregation of Italians or congregation of Greeks or whatever, just using those as an example, of course. Ezra 8:8. Then by the good hand of our God upon us, they brought us a man of understanding, of the sons of Malai, the son of Levi, the son of Israel, namely Sherebiah, with his sons and brothers, 18 men, and Hashabiah, and with him Jeshaniah, of the sons of Merari, his brothers and their sons, 20 men. Also of Nethinim, whom David and the leaders had appointed for the service of the Levites, 220 Nethinim, and all of them were designated by name. We have 3 new men specifically named. Who are they? Sherebiah, Hasabiah, and Jeshaniah. They all have Anaiah at the end of their name. Now we have additional men added to the group of people that are going with Ezra. So, let's see. Let's see here. Let me get back to my bubbles here. So from page 4, is that correct? I'll make sure I'm doing it right. Oh, and we're just talking men. I see what I was doing. Okay, page 4. Oh, no, page 4. We have 1,515 men. Okay. Number of men listed in Ezra 8:16. 11 men. Number of men listed in question 1 above, 3. Men that came with Sherebiah, 18 men. Men that came with Jeshaniah, 20 men. And number of Nethinim, 220. Total men of now going with Ezra, 1,784. So with women and children, and usually you double it to consider that, That would be 3,568. Then I proclaimed a fast there at the river of Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our God to seek from him the right way for us and our little ones and all our possessions. For I was ashamed to request of the king an escort of soldiers and horsemen to help against the enemy on the road, because we had spoken to the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon all those for good who seek him, but his power and his wrath are against all those who forsake him. So we fasted and entreated our God for this, and he answered our prayer. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Ezra wants to take all these people, but there's hazards on the road. And so he's asking for God to protect them because he's already made this claim that his God is a great God and we protect them for all things. So now he has to make sure everybody prays and make sure that that happens. Otherwise, he'd be eating his words, right? What did Ezra proclaim at the river of Ahava? A fast. As we can see by verse 23, this means prayer as well. What words does Ezra use in verse 21 that prove that there are more than just men in this group? Our little ones and all our possessions. So we know that they're little ones. Well, obviously, if there are little ones, that there are women as well. Ezra did not feel it was right for him to ask for what from the king? Protection on the road. In your words, why did Ezra not feel it was right to ask those things from the king? Because he had already talked about how great their God was at protecting them. And so now he's going to have to put his money where his mouth is and actually allow his people to travel without any warriors or soldiers or protection. Although Ezra would not know until he arrived in Jerusalem if God protected his group, he already tells us the result. Did God protect Ezra's group of travelers? Yes, he did. And I separated 12 of the leaders of the priests, Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of his brethren with them, and weighed out to them the silver, the gold, and the articles, the offerings for the house of our God, which the king and his counselors and his princes, and all Israel who was present had offered. I weighed into their hands 650 talents of silver, silver articles weighing 100 talents, 100 talents of gold, and 20 gold basins worth 1,000 drachmas, and 2 vessels of fine polished bronze, precious as gold. Okay. How many priests did Ezra separate out? 12. We have been introduced to Sherebiah before in Ezra 18. Review who he is. Well, you can look back on Ezra 18, but let's see if I can help you out. He is a man of understanding. He is of the sons of Malai, the son of Levi, the son of Israel. He brought his sons and brothers. What was weighed out in front of these priests? The let's see, weighed out. 650. Let's see. Well, went weighed out for our priests. Okay, I'm not. The silver. Oh, I gotcha. The silver, the gold, the articles, and the offering for the house of our God. How much silver was weighed out? 650 talents of silver. How many silver articles? Well, 100 talents. Is that what I mean? 650 talents of silver. Okay. And there were several articles weighing 100 talents. Okay. That question is not quite correct. What is the amount of silver articles or whatever? How much gold? 100 talents of gold. How many gold basins? 20 gold basins. And how many vessels of bronze? 2 vessels of bronze. Although there's no way to really calculate the value of this gold and silver today, but one estimate makes it roughly equal to nearly 80 million in 2017 US dollars, or 4 billion Philippine pesos. The reason why I include that is I have taught some of this in Philippines, so I had to kind of relate that. Ezra 8:28, and I said to them, you are holy to the Lord, the articles are holy also, and the silver and gold are a freewill offering to the Lord God of your fathers. Watch and keep them until you weigh them before the leaders of the priests and the Levites, and the heads of the fathers' houses of Israel in Jerusalem, in the chambers of the house of the Lord. So the priests and the Levites received the silver and gold and the articles by weight to bring them to Jerusalem to the house of our God. These priests were to watch over these items until they weigh them in front of whom? Before the leaders of the priests and Levites and the heads of the fathers' houses in Jerusalem. This weighing would be in Jerusalem, but where exactly? In the chambers of the house of the Lord. So let's review. Okay, so let's review. How many people are traveling with Ezra? There are 3,568 people traveling with Ezra, including the women and children. How much is the present day value of all the gold, silver, and articles they're carrying? It's roughly 80 million in US dollars in 2017. How many soldiers and horsemen are coming to protect this group? None. Who alone is going to protect them? God. So this requires a lot of faith, right? Then we departed from the river of Ahava on the 12th day of the first month to go to Jerusalem. And the hand of our God was upon us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy and from ambush along the road. So we came to Jerusalem and stayed there 3 days. In Ezra 7:9, it says that on the first day of the first month, Ezra began his journey from Babylon. Yet here it says that they departed from the river of Ahava on the 12th day of the first month. Looking back on Ezra 8:15 to 20, what happened during this time? They stopped in Ahava and went to that city to gather more Levites. That's what they did in those 20 days. What is the first month in the Jewish calendar? Nisan. What did God do for this group of unprotected travelers? He delivered them without ambush into Jerusalem. Ezra 7:9 says when this group arrived in Jerusalem. When was that? You could look that up, but they arrived the first day of the 5th month. We have previously calculated it took 118 days for Ezra to travel from Babylon to Jerusalem. But we now discover that they departed the river of Ahava on the 12th day, not the first day. So subtracting 11 days, how many days did it take this group to travel from the river of Ahava to Jerusalem? So subtracting 11 from 118, you get 107. How long did they stay in Jerusalem before doing anything else once they arrived? 3 days. 3 days to recoup, relax. It's been a long travel. Now, on the 4th day, the silver and gold and the articles were weighed in the house of our God by the hand of Meremoth, the son of Uriah, the priest. And with him was Eleazar, the son of Phinehas. And with them were the Levites, Jozabad, the son of Teshua, and Noadiah, the son of Benui. With the number of weight of everything, all the weight was written down at that time. When did Meremoth, Eleazar, Josabad, and Noadiah arrive in Jerusalem? Unknown, actually, since it is not possible that they arrived with the first group of returnees listed in Ezra chapters 1-2, as that was 80 years prior. These 4 men are likely sons or grandsons of the original returning priests and Levites. We have disconnecting gaps here and through Ezra and Nehemiah, where we don't know where people come from, but we have to assume. Why do you think all the items were weighed rather than counted? Because it was easier to be able to weigh them again and know if the weight was the same. And maybe there are multiple different types of things. What is the difference between a Levite and a priest? Levites have to be able to trace their bloodline directly back to Aaron, the first high priest, whereas Levites are just descended from the family of Levi. The priests were to priests were to Priests were to minister to the people while the Levites were assistants to the priests. Why was it important to write down the weight and count of everything? To make sure that it was the same as what they left with, so they could counter check it when it's delivered. The children of those who had been carried away captive, who had come from the captivity, offered burnt offerings to the God of Israel. 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, and 12 male goats as a sin offering. All this was a burnt offering to the Lord. There are 5 types of offerings that can be given. In Leviticus 1:7, it shows these: burnt, grain, peace, sin, and trespass. In this case, we have both the burnt offerings and the sin offerings. Burnt offerings in general were part of the public display of worship to God. Sin offerings were acknowledgement by the people that were sinners before God. How many bulls, rams, lambs were used in the burnt offering for all of Israel? 12 bulls, 96 rams, 77 lambs, and 12 male goats. Okay. How many goats? 12 male goats. What are the 5 types of offerings that can be given? Burnt, grain, peace, sin, and trespass. I just happened to be working on a book on Exodus 25 through 31, which is the building of the tabernacle. And they talk again about these five offerings. And trespass is the one that you don't see except a certain time. Burnt, grain, peace, sin, probably you see here as well. But trespass, you don't. Trespass is for all the sins that they aren't to acknowledge, or all the sins they don't know about. And that's usually on a certain day, a festival day. So that was specific to a certain day, basically. That's how I understand it. Day of Atonement? Anyway, that's why you don't always see trespass sin, but the burnt grain, peace, sin, you do. And peace, you can often hear it as a wave offering. It's under the peace. You have a food offering that's also under burnt. So they sometimes use different names for those. Just a little bit of trivia for you. The king's decrees were delivered to his highest officers and the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, who then cooperated by supporting the people in the temple of God. Ezra does not give us a clue here what the reaction was from these highest officers and governors when he told them what was in the decree from King Artaxerxes, but we can surmise that it wasn't as easy as he suggests. Why? Let's look back at their history in connection with the rebuilding of the temple and the walls of Jerusalem. So using the timeline on page 5. So I'm going to pop over there real quick so you can see which timeline it is. Here, this timeline. So all the answers are on this timeline. Okay. I'm going to be giving you the answers, but they're all here. Okay. I lost my place. There. Must be here. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so in the year 536 BC, using the timeline, what are the Samaritans, the people of the province west of the Euphrates River, able to stop? Well, we remember that they were able to halt the building of the temple. How long was the building of the temple stopped? The building of the temple was stopped for 21 years. So they went down, Zerubbabel's group went down to build the temple, and then the Samaritans were able to stop them for 21 years before God got after them saying, hey, you're building your houses, but not my house. What are you doing? I'm not going to bless you anymore. And so they got back to building it. What did the Samaritans try to do when the building of the temple started again? They tried to stop it. They tried to stop the building again. Were the Samaritans able to stop the building of the temple the second time? No, they were not. Did the Samaritans send a letter to the king asking to stop the rebuilding of the wall? Yes, they did. Were they successful in stopping the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem? Yes, they were successful to stop the building of the walls of Jerusalem. They were. Now let's look again at the decree that Ezra had from King Artaxerxes. Ezra 7:21. And I, even I, Artaxerxes the king, issue a decree to all the treasurers who are in the region beyond the river, and that whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of God of heaven, may require of you, let it be done diligently. Based on our past knowledge of the Samaritans, how do you think they felt about this decree? They were pretty upset. They thought they had control, and now all their treasuries are going to be used for this temple. However, based on Ezra 8:36, did they cooperate? Yes, they did, because the king can do all kinds of things against them. So we come to the end of the chapter, and hopefully we can do this, but I do have the answers. How many days did the people camp by the river? How many days did the people? This is one down. This is two down. Two across. Sorry, two across. 3 days. How many types of offerings are there? 5. The travelers gathered by the river that flows to where? Ahava. 8. Ezra felt ashamed to request from the king an escort of king soldiers and horsemen. 9. How many months was the travel from Babylon to Jerusalem? It was 4 months. How many days did they stay in Jerusalem before doing anything? 3 days. Okay. 2 threes. Interesting. And don't normally have that, but there you go. How many priests did Ezra separate out? 12, right? 2. Yeah, 12. Who is the chief man in Casaphia? That would be Ido. 5. Ezra proclaimed a fast at the river of Ahava. And 7. Of the people coming with Ezra, who was from the line of David? Fetish. So anyway, that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it some. At least it illuminated Ezra some. And I hope you have a great day.